It's definitely a shock. And I think public is still not coping with the news that's been coming in. At the same time, there's not that much news. We are still waiting for the results of the surgery, knowing that the conditions of the prime minister is stable, yet still serious.
But we understand that he's probably going to survive this, according to the acting president. Nevertheless, a terrible situation. What do we know about the person who is reportedly in custody, the shooter?
The shooter is a 71-year-old retiree, man from southern Slovakia. Recent images from the police shown him that he has visited one or been present at one other government meeting that government from time to time has somewhere in the regions. So he's been seen around government before. However, as his son told media, he didn't see it. Most probably was some sort of a snap reaction. Nonetheless, there are some antagonizing traits in the information we know about this man. On one hand, he speaks about politically motivated attack and not really being on board with what the current prime minister was standing for. At the same time, he's shown also in some previous pictures with paramilitary groups, very right-wing, very nationalist. So it's difficult to say or difficult to paint the personality profile of this man at this current moment.
Yeah, quite confusing. I mean, the fact that, you know, the Prime Minister was out and about greeting people, he had just been at a government meeting. I take it this kind of attack is very rare and people don't fear, politicians are not fearful about being in public.
That's true, even though we have to mention that Slovakia has had some high-profile shootings in the past, sadly to say, 5 years. One of them being in 2018, the murder of an investigative journalist, Jan Kuciak, which has shaken the political scene in Slovakia. Also, 2 years ago, there was a shooting aimed at an LGBTI bar in downtown Bratislava. Nonetheless, this is the first time a very high-profile political figure was the target, and some security experts say that Slovak politicians sometimes underestimate the security that needs to be taken when greeting the people, and probably the Prime Minister's immediate security was also not that well prepared for a situation like this.
Because, you know, at the same time, Zuzana, things are quite heated in Slovakia. Prime Minister Fico's policy direction seems to be courting populist opinion, but there are many people against some of the policies he's pursuing.
Definitely. And this is the fourth time that Robert Fico is in office. So we have these past 2 decades almost that we can track the way he either approached media, approached different international questions. For example, the recent pro-Russian narrative that's been often labeled or put together with his name. Some years ago, he was a very strong pro-European advocate and advocating for Slovakia being in the very core of the European Union. There were different, like in this very long timeline of his, there were some events, such as the already mentioned murder of the journalist, that sort of changed the way that his policy and even his speech and what he proclaims, these have strongly affected him.
Yeah. In reading about the story and, you know, reading a lot of the reporting, the media is coming in for a lot of criticism. You work for the public broadcaster, which is in fact under threat from his policies.
It's a very unfortunate coincidence that this hideous act happened on the very same day that the parliament was opening the negotiations about the new law that will affect us also in the public broadcasting. At the same time, it's the culture ministry that is not directly under the leadership or the party of the current prime minister, Robert Fico. There's a nationalist party that is much more interested in the way that the public media are handled in Slovakia. Nonetheless, we can say that Robert Fico gave sort of a green card to this party to deal with media at their will. Yes, even though we are currently as journalists of the public media in some sort of I don't want to say strike alert, but yeah, there are steps that we are considering taking. At the moment, all of this has been put to side. This is now the most important news that's happening in the country, and we closely follow what's going on. Even the general director of the public radio and television in Slovakia has approached us today with some message on how security is going to be provided for the journalists of this media, but not only this particular station, but also media in general in Slovakia. Even the interior minister assured are going to get higher security. And maybe the last thing to add to this, one of party members of Smer party that Robert Fico was a long-term head of, already yesterday said that this unfortunate event is to be blamed also on journalists for spreading hate against Robert Fico, which I guess me and my colleagues are very strongly opposing.
Yes, of course, you would deny that. And you know, I think unfortunately, in this day and age, it's very easy to blame the media, even if you are just trying to do your job in many instances. Zuzana, thank you very much for your reporting and for joining us tonight.
Good evening.